I thought I buried my past 2,000 miles away, until the night it walked back through my door. The rain tapped softly against the cafe windows, steady, almost comforting, like a lullaby I had trained myself to believe in, like safety I had never truly earned. I stood behind the counter wiping the same clean surface for the third time, pretending the quiet life I built here was real, pretending no one remembered the name I left behind. My son slept in the corner booth, curled under my old coat. His small breaths the only thing that kept me anchored, the only reason I stayed hidden this long. This town was small, barely 5,000 people, the kind of place where no one asked questions and everyone minded their business, exactly what I needed, exactly what I chose, or so I thought. Then I noticed the car, black, parked across the street, engine still running. It had been there for 10 minutes, maybe longer. I told myself it meant nothing, just another customer, just another stranger passing through. But my hands didn't believe it, they trembled just enough for me to notice. Just enough to remind me that instincts don't forget even when you try to. The bell above the cafe door chimed, soft, ordinary, but everything inside me went still. I didn't need to look, I already knew. I felt it in the silence that followed, in the way the air shifted, in the way the world seemed to hold its breath. Then I looked, and there he was, tall, composed, dressed in black like he carried the night with him. He didn't rush, didn't scan the room, didn't hesitate. He walked in like he had never been gone, like this place belonged to him now, like I did. My heart stuttered once, hard, painful. I reached for my son instinctively, pulling him closer even before he woke, even before I understood what would happen next. His eyes found mine, dark, steady, unshaken by time or distance, and in that moment I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I had not escaped him, not even for a second. "Hello, Emily," he said, voice low, controlled, the name hitting me like it didn't belong to me anymore, like it was something I had buried and forgotten. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You're mistaken," I whispered, but even I didn't believe it. His gaze dropped briefly to the small boy at my side, then returned to me with something colder, something sharper. "No," he said quietly, "you're exactly where I knew you'd be." My son stirred, blinking up at the stranger, curious, unaware, innocent in a way I had tried so hard to protect. The man stepped closer, slow, deliberate, like every movement was a decision already made long ago. "You disappeared," he continued, softer now, almost thoughtful, "without a word. Without a trace." I shook my head, backing away a single step, gripping the counter like it could hold me together. "I had to," I said, the truth slipping out before I could stop it. His eyes didn't change, but something in the air did, something heavier, deeper, more dangerous. He crouched slightly, just enough to bring himself closer to my son's level, studying him in silence that stretched too long. Then he looked back at me. And everything I had built here, every lie, every quiet morning, every safe night, shattered in a single sentence. "You didn't run away from me," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "You ran away with something that belongs to me." My fingers tightened around the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned pale, not from fear alone but from the weight of everything I had tried to protect collapsing in a single breath. My son looked up at me, confused, his small hand tugging at my sleeve as if asking a question I could not answer. I forced a smile that did not belong on my face, one I had practiced for months in this quiet town, one that had kept us safe. "Go back to sleep, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing his hair back gently, but he did not move. His eyes stayed on the man in front of us, curious in a way that made my heart ache, because innocence does not recognize danger until it is too late. The man rose slowly, his gaze never leaving the child, and there was something in his expression that shifted, not softer, not warmer, just different, like he was calculating something that mattered more than anything else in this room. "What is his name?" he asked, his voice calm, almost conversational, but there was no mistaking the authority behind it. I hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. His eyes flicked back to mine, sharp, precise, reading me the way he always had. "You named him without me," he continued, not accusing, not angry, just stating a fact that carried more weight than any threat ever could. I swallowed, forcing myself to stand straight, to hold on to the version of me that had survived these past years. "His name is Noah," I said quietly, the truth feeling like both a shield and a surrender. He repeated it under his breath, "Noah," like he was testing how it felt, like He was placing it somewhere in his world, my world, our world, and for a second, just a second, the cafe felt too small to hold all of it. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the glass in a rhythm that made everything feel slower, sharper, more real. He stepped closer again, not enough to touch, never that careless, but enough that I could feel the presence of him, the gravity of someone who had never been denied anything. 5 years, he said, his voice lower now, almost reflective. 5 years you disappeared, and you thought I would not look. I shook my head, a quiet, broken motion. I did not think anything, I admitted, because lies had never worked with him, not once. I just left. His jaw tightened slightly, the only visible crack in his control, and even that was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else. But I saw it, I always saw it. You left with my future, he said. And this time there was something in his voice, not anger, not exactly, something deeper. Something that made my chest tighten in a way I had not felt in years. Noah shifted beside me, stepping a little closer, his small hand slipping into mine, grounding me in a reality that mattered more than anything this man could take or give. I squeezed his hand gently, reminding myself why I ran, why I stayed gone, why I built this life out of nothing but quiet mornings and simple routines. He is not part of your world, I said. My voice steady now, stronger than I expected. He never will be. The words hung between us, fragile but firm, and for the first time since he walked in, something changed in his expression, not disbelief, not dismissal, but recognition, like he finally understood the line I had drawn. The one thing I would not let him cross. He glanced at Noah again, really looked this time, taking in the small details, the shape of his eyes, the way he stood, the quiet confidence in a child who had never known fear the way I had. Then he exhaled slowly, a controlled breath that carried decision. You are wrong, he said, not harsh, not raised, just certain. He has always been part of my world. My heart dropped, but I did not move, did not step back, did not break, because I knew this moment mattered, every second of it. He reached into his coat, not threatening, not sudden, and pulled out something small, a photograph, worn at the edges like it had been carried for a long time. He placed it gently on the counter between us, sliding it forward just enough for me to see. I looked down, and the air left my lungs, because it was me, years ago, standing beside him, before everything fell apart, before I ran, before Noah existed, and when I looked back up, his eyes were on mine. Again, steady, unrelenting. You do not get to rewrite what we are, he said quietly, and you do not get to decide what he is to me. The photograph blurred in my vision for a second before I forced myself to focus, to breathe, to stay present, because falling apart was not an option anymore, not with Noah standing beside me, not with him watching every reaction like it meant something more than words ever could. I lifted my gaze slowly, meeting his eyes again, steady this time, controlled. That was a lifetime ago, I said quietly, pushing the photo back toward him with 2 fingers, like distance could erase what it represented, like space could undo everything between us. He did not take it, not immediately. His eyes stayed on me, searching, measuring, as if he was deciding whether I was telling the truth or just another version of it. For you, he replied after a moment, his voice calm but edged with something deeper. Not for me. The rain outside intensified, louder now, pressing against the windows like it wanted in, like it was part of this conversation, part of this moment that refused to stay contained. Noah shifted again, his grip tightening on my hand, and I felt it, that quiet pull back to what mattered, to what I could not lose. I knelt slightly, bringing myself closer to him, brushing his hair back again, softer this time. Go sit down, sweetheart, I murmured, my voice gentler than I felt. I will be right here. He hesitated, looking between me and the man, reading something he could not fully understand, then nodded slowly and walked back to the booth, climbing onto the seat with small, careful movements. Still watching, always watching, I stood again, turning back to face the man who had never really left my life. No matter how far I ran. You have seen him, I said, keeping my voice even. Now you should leave. It sounded simple, almost naive, but I needed to say it, needed to try. He exhaled slowly, almost like he expected that answer, like he had already prepared for it before walking through that door. You still believe this is a choice, he said, not mocking, not dismissive, just stating it, and somehow that made it heavier, harder to argue against. I crossed my arms instinctively, a small barrier that meant nothing to him but everything to me. It is my life, I said, firmer now, and his, I added, glancing briefly toward Noah. He followed my gaze again, and this time he did not hide what he saw, something like recognition, something like understanding, but not acceptance. Never that. You built this, he said, looking around the cafe, the worn tables, the quiet corners, the simple life I had carved out piece by piece. You made something safe. There was a pause, a shift, subtle but undeniable, but safety built on silence does not last. My chest tightened, not because of the words, but because of the truth behind them, truths I had spent years avoiding, ignoring, hoping they would fade if I stayed still long enough. No one knows we are here, I said quickly, too quickly, and I heard it, the crack in my own voice. He did too, of course he did. His gaze sharpened just enough to confirm it. I found you, he said simply, and that was all it took, because if he could find me, then nothing I built was as hidden as I believed. The room felt smaller again, the walls closer, the air thinner. I forced myself to hold his gaze, refusing to step back, refusing to give him that. Then what do you want? I asked, because this was the question that mattered, the one that would decide everything after this moment. He did not answer right away. His eyes moved once more to Noah, who sat quietly in the booth, watching us with wide, curious eyes, then back to me, steady, certain, unmovable. I want what is mine, he said, and the way he said it was not a threat, not a demand, but something far more dangerous, something final, something that made it clear this was only the beginning. The words settled between us like something permanent, something that could not be taken back or softened, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe, not because I did not understand him, but because I understood him too well. I straightened slowly, forcing my shoulders back, forcing strength into a body that wanted to fold under the weight of everything he represented. He is not something you can claim, I said, my voice low but steady, every word deliberate. He is a child, not a possession. His expression did not change, not even a flicker, but his eyes sharpened in a way that told me I had crossed into something deeper, something more dangerous than defiance alone. You still think I am here to take, he replied, calm, measured, like he had already played this conversation out in his mind before arriving. I shook my head, a small movement, but certain. You always take, I said, because that was the truth I carried with me, the truth that had pushed me to leave everything behind. The truth that had kept me running for 5 years without looking back. His jaw tightened just slightly, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough for me, enough to remind me that I was not wrong, just incomplete. The silence stretched again, filled only by the steady rhythm of rain and the faint hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. Ordinary sounds in a moment that felt anything but ordinary. Then Noah's voice broke through. Soft but clear, Mom, he said, and everything in me shifted instantly. I turned to him without hesitation, crossing the small space in 2 steps, kneeling in front of him, brushing my hand gently along his cheek, grounding both of us. It is okay, I whispered, even though it was not, even though nothing about this was okay anymore. He looked past me, toward the man, his brows pulling together slightly, studying him with a quiet curiosity that made my chest tighten again. Is he your friend? Noah asked, and the question landed harder than anything else that had been said. I hesitated, just for a second, and that second felt like it stretched too long, like it gave away more than I wanted it to. I shook my head gently. No, I said softly, he is someone I used to know. I felt him move behind me before I heard him, the subtle shift of air, the quiet presence that always came with him, controlled, deliberate, never rushed. That is not entirely accurate, he said, his voice closer now, but still calm, still measured. I turned slightly, enough to see him without fully leaving Noah's side. Then what is he? Noah asked again, his small voice steady, unafraid in a way that only children can be. And for the first time since he walked in, the man did not answer immediately. His gaze rested on Noah, longer this time, not assessing, not calculating, just looking, as if he was seeing something he had missed, something that mattered in a way he had not expected. Then he spoke, quieter than before, but no less certain. I am someone who has been looking for you for a very long time. The words hung in the air, not directed at me this time, but at the child who did not yet understand their weight. I felt Noah's hand tighten in mine again, and I squeezed back gently, anchoring him, anchoring myself. "We are not going anywhere," I said firmly, rising to my feet again, placing myself fully between them now, a line drawn without needing to be spoken. His eyes lifted to meet mine, and there was something new there, not softer, not weaker, but more focused, more resolved, like a decision had been made. "You misunderstand," he said, his voice low, controlled, but carrying something that made my pulse quicken. "I did not come to take him away." I blinked, the statement catching me off guard despite everything, despite every instinct telling me not to trust a single word. "Then why are you here?" I asked, because that question had not changed, not since the moment he walked through that door. He took one step closer, stopping just short of crossing the space I held, respecting it in a way that felt intentional, deliberate, "Because whether you accept it or not," he said quietly, "you did not just leave me behind." His gaze shifted briefly to Noah, then back to me, unyielding. "You left me a reason to come back." I held his gaze, refusing to let the weight of his words pull me back into something I had already survived once, because that was the truth he did not understand. I had not just left him, I had survived him, and that difference mattered more than anything he believed he still owned. "You do not get to decide what that reason means," I said quietly, my voice steady even as my pulse refused to slow. He watched me carefully, not interrupting, not pushing, just listening in that controlled way that always made silence feel louder than words. Behind me Noah shifted again, climbing down from the booth, his small footsteps soft against the floor as he moved closer, drawn not by fear but by curiosity. I felt it before I saw it, that subtle change in the room, that shift where everything became about what happened next. I reached back instinctively, my hand finding his shoulder, grounding him, grounding myself. "Stay close," I murmured, and he nodded without question, trusting me in a way that made everything harder, not easier. The man's gaze followed the movement, not missing anything, never missing anything. "You built a life around him," he said after a moment, his tone quieter now, less sharp but no less certain. "Every decision, every mile, every lie." The word lingered slightly, not accusatory, just precise. I exhaled slowly, lifting my chin just enough to meet him fully. "I built a life for him," I corrected, because that was the only version of the truth that mattered to me. He tilted his head slightly, considering that, not dismissing it, not agreeing either, just placing it somewhere in his understanding. "And you think that life can exist without consequence," he said, not as a question but as something already answered. I felt something tighten in my chest again, not fear this time, something closer to frustration, to exhaustion, to the weight of being forced back into a world I had spent years escaping. "We have been fine," I said. Quieter now but no less firm. "No one has come looking, no one has asked questions." His eyes held mine for a long second, and in that silence I realized something I had not wanted to admit. He had not just found me, he had found me first, before anyone else, before anything else could reach us. "That is because I made sure of it," he said simply, and the words hit differently, not like a threat, not like a claim, but like a truth that had existed whether I knew it or not. I blinked, the meaning settling slowly, carefully. "What do you mean?" I asked, because suddenly the quiet life I had trusted did not feel like my own anymore. He stepped slightly to the side, not closer, not further, just enough to shift the space between us. "No one has come looking because no one was allowed to," he replied, his voice calm, controlled, as if he was explaining something obvious, something I should have understood already. My breath caught for just a second, not from fear, but from the realization that everything I believed I had built alone had never been entirely mine, that the safety I trusted had been shaped by something I refused to see. "You think I would not notice you disappear," he continued, softer now, but more direct. "You think I would not close every door behind you before someone else found it." I shook my head slightly, not in denial, but in disbelief at how easily he said it, how naturally control came to him, even when I was not there, even when I thought I had escaped it. "That is not protection," I said quietly, because I needed to hold on to something, anything that separated his world from mine. "That is control." His gaze did not waver, but something in it shifted again, something almost unreadable. "Call it whatever you need to," he said, "but it kept you alive." The words lingered in the air, heavier than anything else he had said, because part of me knew he was not wrong, and that truth was more dangerous than anything else in this room. Noah's hand tightened around mine again, pulling me back, reminding me of the only thing that mattered. I straightened, drawing a breath that felt sharper now, clearer, we are still not going anywhere, I said, stronger this time, not because I was certain, but because I needed to be, for him, for myself. His eyes moved from me to Noah one more time, then back, steady, unshaken, and when he spoke again, it was quieter, but final in a way that left no room for misunderstanding. You are not the only one who decides that anymore. The finality in his voice did not raise in volume, but it pressed against me harder than anything loud ever could, like a door closing somewhere I could not see. I felt Noah shift closer, his small body leaning into my side, trusting without question, and that trust steadied something inside me that had begun to slip. I exhaled slowly, forcing my thoughts to align, to stay clear. Because panic would only give him control, I refused to hand over again. You do not get to walk in here and change everything, I said, my tone measured, each word chosen carefully. He watched me the same way he always had, like I was a puzzle he already knew how to solve, like time had not changed anything between us. Everything was already changed the moment you left, he replied, calm, certain, not arguing, just stating it as fact. I shook my head, taking a small step back, keeping space between us, not out of fear but out of necessity. No, I said, firmer now, I changed it, I made something different. My hand rested lightly on Noah's shoulder, grounding him, reminding myself what different meant: quiet mornings, simple routines, a life that did not belong to anyone else's rules. He glanced at my hand, then at Noah, then back to me, and for a moment there was something in his expression that almost looked like understanding, but it did not soften him, it sharpened him instead. Different does not mean separate, he said quietly. You are still connected to everything you tried to leave behind. The words settled heavily, because part of me knew that connection had never fully broken, it had only been hidden, buried beneath distance and silence. I tightened my grip slightly on Noah's shoulder, steady, protective. He is not connected to that, I said, my voice lower now, more personal. He deserves better than that world. His gaze lingered on me, longer this time, as if he was weighing something deeper than control or ownership, something I could not read. Then he moved, not closer to me, but toward Noah, slow, deliberate, careful in a way that made my entire body tense. I stepped forward instinctively, placing myself between them again, but he stopped, respecting that line without needing to be told, and that pause mattered more than I expected. It meant he was choosing restraint, not forced into it, and that difference unsettled me more than if he had pushed past it. I am not here to pull him into anything, he said, his voice quieter now, directed at me but not ignoring Noah. I am here because he already is part of it, whether you accept it or not. I felt my chest tighten again, not from fear, but from the weight of a truth I had been refusing to fully face. Noah looked up at me, then at him, his small brow furrowing slightly, trying to understand something that had not yet been explained to him. Why is he talking like that? Noah asked softly, and the innocence in his voice made everything sharper, clearer. I knelt again, bringing myself to his level, brushing my hand gently along his arm. He is just confused, I said, the words coming easier than they should have, because protecting him meant simplifying everything that was not simple at all. But before I could say anything more, the man spoke again, not raising his voice, not interrupting harshly, just entering the moment like he belonged in it. No, he said quietly. And Noah looked at him again, curious, listening. I am not confused, he continued, his eyes shifting from Noah to me, holding both of us in a way that felt impossible to ignore. I have been waiting for the right time. My breath caught slightly, because those words carried something more than patience, more than determination. They carried intention, something planned long before this moment, long before I realized he would ever find us. I stood slowly, pulling Noah gently behind me again, instinct overriding everything else. Waiting for what? I asked, even though part of me was not sure I wanted the answer. He held my gaze, unshaken, steady, as if the answer had always been simple to him, as if it had never changed. For you to stop running, he said quietly, and for him to be old enough to understand why you did. The words landed slower than anything else he had said, not loud, not forceful, but precise in a way that made them impossible to ignore. And for the first time since he walked through that door, I felt something shift inside me that was not just resistance, it was recognition. I tightened my hold on Noah's hand, grounding myself in the present, in the only reality I had chosen, but my voice when it came out was quieter, Less certain than before, he does not need to understand anything about that. I said, my eyes locked on his, refusing to let the past dictate what came next. Noah looked up at me again, confused now, sensing the tension even if he could not name it. Mom, what is he talking about? He asked softly, and that question, simple and honest, cut deeper than anything else in the room. I knelt again, brushing my hand along his arm, searching for words that would protect him without breaking the truth completely. He is talking about things that happened before you were born, I said gently, choosing each word carefully, things that do not change who you are. Noah nodded slowly, accepting it because he trusted me, because children believe in the people who keep them safe, and that trust felt heavier than anything else I carried. I stood again, turning back to the man who had never really left my life. You should go, I said, firmer now, reclaiming the space I had almost lost. Whatever you think you are waiting for, it is not happening here. He studied me in silence for a long moment, his gaze steady, unshaken, like he had expected this, like he had prepared for every version of this moment except the one where I gave in. You are still trying to protect him from me, he said quietly, not accusing, not offended, just observing. I did not deny it, I could not. Yes, I replied simply, because some truths did not need to be hidden. His eyes shifted to Noah again, then back to me, and there was something in that look that changed the air again. Something more focused, more deliberate, like a decision had just settled into place. Then you should understand what you are protecting him from, he said, his voice lower now, more direct, and that was when I felt it, the shift I had been trying to avoid, the moment where the past stopped being something distant and became something present again, something real. You left because you thought my world would take everything from you, he continued, each word controlled, measured, but you never asked what I would give instead. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear this time, but from something more complicated, something I did not want to name, because naming it would mean admitting it had always been there. I did not need to ask, I said, but my voice was not as steady as before, and he noticed. Of course he did, he always noticed. No, he said softly, you assumed. The word lingered, not harsh, but heavy, like it carried years of distance between us. I shook my head slightly, trying to pull myself back to what mattered, to what was real now. And you assume nothing has changed, I replied, pushing back, needing to regain control of the moment. You assume I am still the same person who walked away. His gaze held mine, steady, unyielding, and for a second there was something almost reflective in it, like he was considering that possibility, weighing it against everything he knew. Then he took a slow breath, deliberate, controlled. No, he said quietly, I know you are not. The admission caught me off guard, not because of what it said, but because of how easily he said it, like he had already accepted it without needing proof. You built something here, he added, his eyes moving briefly around the cafe, taking in the life I had created, something real. There was a pause, a shift, subtle but undeniable, then his gaze returned to me, sharper now, more certain. But you built it on borrowed time. My heart skipped once, hard, because I understood what he meant before he even finished, and now that time is over. The words did not echo, they settled, heavy and final, like something that had already been decided long before this moment, and for the first time I felt it clearly, not fear, not panic, but the quiet realization that everything I built had been standing on something fragile all along. I drew a slow breath, steadying myself, because breaking now would mean losing more than I could afford. Noah's hand tightened in mine again, his small fingers curling with trust. I could not betray. I straightened, placing myself fully between him and the man, not as a shield alone, but as a line that would not move. Then you are wrong, I said quietly, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. Time does not belong to you. His gaze did not flicker, but something in his posture shifted, subtle, controlled, like he was adjusting to a version of me he had not expected. No, he replied, just as calm. But consequences do. The word lingered, not as a threat, but as something inevitable, something that had already begun. The rain outside slowed slightly, the rhythm softer now, but the silence inside the cafe felt louder, sharper, every second stretching between us. I glanced briefly toward the window, toward the street I had walked 100 times without thinking, without fear, and now it felt different, smaller, exposed, like the world had tilted just enough to reveal something I had refused to see. What consequences? I asked, because I needed to hear it, needed to understand what he believed had already started. He did not answer immediately. His eyes moved past me for a moment, toward the door, toward something outside that I could not see yet, then back to me, steady, certain, the kind that do not wait for permission, he said quietly, and something in the way he said it made my chest tighten, not from him, but from everything else that might follow. Noah shifted slightly behind me, peeking around my side, his curiosity stronger than the tension in the room. "Mom, why is it so quiet?" he whispered, and I felt it too, that unnatural stillness, like the town itself was holding its breath, like something had changed beyond these walls. I turned just slightly, enough to look out the window again, and this time I saw it, another car, parked farther down the street, not familiar, not part of this small town routine, and suddenly the space I had trusted felt different, thinner, like it could not hold us anymore. I turned back to him quickly, my voice lower now, more urgent despite my effort to keep it steady. "Did you bring them here?" I asked, because the answer mattered, because if this was his doing then I could still understand it, still anticipate it, but he shook his head once, slow, controlled. "No," he said, and for the first time there was something unmistakable in his expression, not fear, not hesitation, but awareness, sharp and immediate. "I came alone." My breath caught slightly, because that meant something else entirely, something neither of us had planned, neither of us controlled, and the realization settled fast, heavy, undeniable. I reached back, pulling Noah closer to me instinctively, my hand firm on his shoulder now, grounding him, protecting him. "Then who are they?" I asked, even though part of me already knew the answer, or at least the kind of answer it would be. His gaze shifted once more toward the window, then back to me, sharper now, more focused than at any point since he arrived, and when he spoke, his voice was lower, quieter, but carried something new, something urgent beneath the control. "The reason you should have never stopped running." The words did not leave room for doubt. They settled into the space between us like a warning that had arrived too late, and everything inside me sharpened at once, not panic, not fear, but instinct, the kind that had kept me alive long before this quiet town ever existed. I pulled Noah closer, my arm wrapping around him as I turned slightly, positioning us away from the windows without making it obvious, without letting him see the shift in me. "Stay right here," I murmured softly, brushing his hair back, forcing calm into my voice. He nodded, trusting, always trusting, and that trust burned deeper now, because I could feel it, the thin edge of something breaking beyond these walls. I looked back at him, at the man who had just changed everything again. "You said you came alone," I said, my voice low, controlled, but sharper now. He did not look offended, did not react, he only nodded once, deliberate. "I did," he replied, his eyes already tracking the street beyond the glass. Calculating, measuring, adjusting, and I realized in that moment that whatever was coming, it was not something he had planned, not something he controlled, and that made it worse, because the only thing more dangerous than his world was one he did not command. The cafe felt smaller again, tighter, the air heavier with every passing second. The bell above the door did not move, but the silence pressed harder, louder. I swallowed, forcing myself to stay focused. "Then they are not here for you," I said, even though part of me already knew that was not entirely true. His gaze flicked back to me, sharp, precise. "They are here because of me," he corrected quietly, "and because of you." The words landed together, inseparable, and that was the truth I had been avoiding for years, that there was no clean line between his world and mine, not anymore, maybe never. I felt Noah shift again, pressing closer, sensing the tension now even if he could not understand it. "Mom," he whispered, and I squeezed his hand gently, grounding him, grounding myself. I turned my body slightly more, placing myself fully between him and the windows, between him and whatever was out there. "We are leaving," I said, not to him, not to Noah, but to myself, because saying it made it real, made it possible. His head tilted slightly, watching me, not stopping me, not agreeing either, just observing in that way that always made choices feel like they were already part of something bigger. "You will not make it far," he said quietly, not as a threat, not even as a warning, just a fact placed carefully in front of me. I met his eyes, steady, refusing to let that stop me. "I already did once," I replied, and this time there was no hesitation in my voice, because that was the truth I held on to, the one thing he could not take from me. Something flickered in his gaze, not doubt, not disbelief, but something closer to respect, or maybe recognition, like he understood that I would try no matter what he said, no matter what stood in the way. The rain outside slowed even more, the drops lighter now, quieter, but the tension did not ease. It built, stretched, waiting. Then in the distance, faint but unmistakable, a car door closed, the sound carrying through the stillness like a signal neither of us could ignore. His eyes shifted toward the door instantly, sharp, focused, every part of him alert now, and for the first time since he walked in, I saw it clearly, not fear, but readiness, the kind that came from someone who had faced this before and knew exactly what it meant. He looked back at me, and his voice when he spoke was lower, more urgent than anything before. If you walk out that door alone, you will be seen. My grip on Noah tightened slightly, my mind racing through choices that all led somewhere dangerous, somewhere uncertain. Then what do you suggest? I asked, because for the first time, I needed an answer, not from him, but from someone who understood what was coming. His gaze held mine, steady, unyielding, and when he spoke, it was not a command, not a demand, but something far more binding, something that felt like the only path left. You walk out with me, he said quietly, or you do not walk out at all.